We're live for EO Kolkata's GSEA 2022. On this live, we host industry leaders, startup mentors, successful entrepreneurs, and angel investors. Before we begin, let me give you a brief about EO. EO is Entrepreneurs Organization and it's a global non-profit organization. It is a high quality support network of over 14,000 like minded leaders across 61 countries. Every year, EO conducts the Global Student Entrepreneurship Award, which is a premier global competition for students who own and operate a business while studying in college and university. GSEA supports student entrepreneurs with mentorship, recognition, and connections to take their business to the next level of success. I'm sure if I was in college and I had known of GSEA, I would have definitely applied because the kind of handholding and the kind of funds that you have access to and the kind of network that you have access to, it is, I think, a once in a lifetime opportunity. Okay, so I'm Sanaya Mehta Vyas and I am going to moderate today's session. So let's get started today and welcome our first guest for the evening, Avni Jhunjhunwala. Hi, Avni.
Hi, Sanaya. Hi, how are you?
Very well. You're looking very, very lovely today.
Thank
So,
you.
first of all, I wanted to ask you to introduce yourself, but first tell me, where did you do school and college?
I studied in Bombay, so I went to Queen Mary High School up until 10th grade. And then I went to Dhirubhai Ambani International School, followed by which I went for an undergraduate degree to New York University.
Okay.
And I studied liberal arts there.
For how long were you there?
I was there for about 4 years.
And so after that, you were back to India?
Yeah, I started working right after college. So I think I
Okay.
went with my friends for a 1 month holiday and I came back to work and I started.
So my next question is, at what age did you start your first job?
So formally, I think I started when I was 21. But informally, I was probably part of the business since I was a child. I remember, going to visit a lot of stores with my father when I was 6, 7 years old. When stores used to open, we used to like stack up inventory. We used to hang shirts. We used to stock up the shelves. So I think my informal part at work, started a lot more early on. The other thing I also did was, I never did any internship in any other uh, company or any other firm. The time that we had off college, I used to come back and I used to spend a lot of time again in the business with my father, meeting a lot of people. And I think it gave me a very different sort of exposure. It gave me a very different understanding of entrepreneurship and a lot of different lessons, which I still carry with me today. So, no regrets there.
Lovely. And where was your first job? You didn't say that.
I started off in 2011 and I founded and I built a business called Food Hall, which is India's premier most grocery chain. We have about 8 stores currently. So that's what I started. The stores are in Bombay, Delhi, Bangalore, and probably some of the students here must have heard and visited a food hall, or some of them probably wouldn't have. But it's one of India's most luxurious food and grocery retail experiences.
Awesome.
And yeah,
Last part is, what are you currently doing? Have you started any more businesses, or what are your,
yeah.
yeah,
So I
what are you
feel
working?
I feel like sorry.
What are you working on now?
I feel like I'm starting over all over again. So in that sense, I feel like I'm going back to when I was 21. I've recently co-founded along with a few other colleagues, a platform called Think Tank Consumer Technologies, where we co-create brands in the consumption spaces of food, fashion, and home. And the idea is to build authentic, digital first customer brands for the new age digital consumer. And we've
Awesome.
launched about 4 brands currently, and few others are in the pipeline.
Sounds really interesting. We're going to come back to you in a little while. We're going to hop across to K right now. Kadambari, welcome. I think you need to unmute yourself.
Thank you. Great being
So,
here.
so happy that you're here today with us. Tell me a little bit about your school and your college.
So I went to school in Calcutta, in Kolkata, in La Martiniere. I was there up till the 12th grade. I finished high school in La Martiniere for girls, and then I went to study for my undergrad to Tulane University in New Orleans, in Louisiana, which was a 4-year degree. I completed it a little bit early. I was in a rush to graduate. I finished it in 3.5 and straight away jumped into investment banking for a couple of years, and post that quickly decided that banking is not what I want to spend the rest of my life doing. So I applied to business school, and I went to Columbia Business School in New York. And yeah, that's my educational background.
So your first job was in banking, and at what age?
So that was not my first job. My first job that actually got paid for in real money was when I was 19 years old. And this is while I was still in college. I was a student and I just wanted to try many different things. And as some of you might know, it's not easy to get student employment, which is interesting. So what I would do is that I would take up jobs that would actually pay so that I had some pocket money, or and then I would actually do other jobs that I found interesting that wouldn't pay. So my first job that did pay was I worked as an intern at the World Trade Organization, which sorry, that was the one that didn't pay, where I was volunteering my time to help small businesses in Louisiana make an export plan for exporting their locally made products all over the world. And the one that did pay was an on campus job where I was the supervisor of a rec area, which was full of pool tables and video games. And I used to sort of manage that recreation area in the evenings.
Sounds like fun.
It definitely upped my snooker game, if nothing else.
Okay, tell me what you're doing now, currently.
Okay, so basically, once I moved back to India, it was a very exciting time for the beverage industry. It was a very exciting time for retail in general, and I was at that point working for an American retail firm that was buying a lot of their products from places like China and India. So I was working as an expat for an American firm that was based in Bangalore. And while I was in Bangalore, I realized there was a little sleepy wine revolution happening in the country, thanks to the likes of Sula and Chateau Indage that were making a whole new product category available to the Indian psyche that just didn't exist while we were growing up. And since I had sort of dabbled with wine, even studied wine just out of interest, it piqued my interest, and that entrepreneurial gene in me started thinking that, hey, maybe it's time to quit the corporate track and build something on my own. So literally, I researched three areas that I was interested in, all consumer businesses, and I decided to go with wine, little knowing how, bureaucratic and challenging it is, but very excited about the idea of being in something that could be a sunrise industry. And I founded Gusto in 2009, and that's what I've been doing for the last 12 years. Gusto Imports is one of the largest importers of fine wine in the country today. We are present across all the metro cities, and we do everything from importing to distribution to sales and marketing, wine education. We have this year also gotten into making our own label, which is manufactured overseas, and soon also in the calendar is opening our own retail shops.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. Okay, so let's get on with the talk now. So the first question is to Avni. Avni, you need to unmute yourself when you answer. How do you see new age entrepreneurs changing traditional systems, breaking barriers, and changing the way businesses are done now? And what change do you think has happened in your sector?
Sanaya, I think so much has changed. Firstly, I'm working in, I wouldn't say a completely new industry, but I'm working with a new set of people, and we're looking at the digital business in a very meaningful way. And I just think COVID came and disrupted so many, rules of the game. So today, a lot of people you work with don't necessarily want to come to office 9 to 5. They don't necessarily always want to be on the computer, always want to be physically present for meetings. So I think that's one big change that has come in. I also fundamentally think that today's generation is beginning to define what they what you know what they see as success as a very different matrix. and I think that's increasingly becoming very personal. So while there is a rat race of a lot of new age entrepreneurs today trying to raise money and trying to like bring in a valuation and all of that, I think at the same time there's also a contra trend that's emerging where people are beginning to like want to work for flexi hours or flexi gigs, where if they believe they have a talent, they want to probably work for some time in the year and also maybe vacation for the rest of the year. And I feel like these options were probably not available a few years ago. These sectors were probably not available a few years ago. So I think technology and also the way consumers today are consuming, the way consumers today are shopping, a lot of that has changed and also brought about these changes.
Okay, thank you. Kadambari, tell me a little bit about your sector, how it's changed.
So, my sector, liquor, is actually one of the most regulated sectors in the country today. You could compare it, the government's sort of involvement in the regulations, and you could compare it to like firearms or even drugs for that matter. It's the only sector that is not under GST, other than fuel, of course. So it is a little bit different from what we are seeing around in terms of the fact that. There's a lot that's not allowed in the sector. It's still not sort of caught up with everything else that's happening around. But what has majorly changed is the consumer. The consumer itself, their psyche has changed, their outlook has changed. There's a lot more experimentation than there was ever before, not just in liquor but generally in consumer products, especially in food and beverage. There's a huge plethora of talent out there that actually gets to collaborate, because of the access to funding, because of the access to like just international sort of consulting. And I'm seeing a lot more that is actually happening because the consumers asking and expecting that. They're not happy with just the choices that were available like 10 years ago. And of course, COVID has obviously sort of like increased that trend even more, where people expect like things on demand, people expect things at home. And even like certain state governments in liquor have had to wake up to that reality, because internationally you can buy alcohol on Amazon, you can order it online. So we're certainly not there yet, but there are small changes that have happened in that I think are sort of like writing on the wall for large changes to happen in the future. Simple things that there's an interface for retail shops that if they do want to use a Swiggy in a state like West Bengal, they can list their products on Swiggy, and you can order a bottle of beer or a bottle of wine that will come to you at home. This was unthinkable pre-COVID. And it's not just COVID. I think it's because of just having access to to things that were just not there 10 years ago. This whole ecosystem did not exist. The startup ecosystem, where you don't need that much to start a new business. Everything is sort of as a pay as you go, kind of a gig economy right now. Even if you need servers, you can just pay for what you need versus having to set up all of it on your own. So a lot of it is just the ease of starting a business, which has changed, that has really impacted food and beverage in general.
You've brought me to my next question, which is the current Indian startup and business ecosystem. Where do you see it going forward? It's already had a huge sea change till now, and what do you think is going to change in the next year or in the next 5 years?
So, in my opinion, sorry, is this, yeah. In my opinion, I think that there's a huge opportunity there for people today who are starting out in their career versus 10 years ago. Historically speaking, our growth rates have been such that the India has sort of added. If you just go by historical growth rates, we're about $3 to $4 trillion as an economy today, and it's expected to become a $30 trillion economy in another 30 years or so, which means that even if say 15-20% of that is sort of captured by the big boys, by the large corporates, by the Amazons of the world, there's still a huge amount of share of the pie left for startups, for other businesses to take. And I think it's only going to get more and more exciting. It's going to get bigger, and it's going to be whether you have a small niche or whether you have a large niche, whether you have a $1 million business or a $1 billion business, there's just going to be a lot of growth and a lot of opportunity in the next 10 years.
Thank you, Kate. Avni, what is your take on this?
I completely agree with what Kadambari is saying. I think in the last, few years, there has been a set of, discerning customers that have emerged that have the ability to, ability to spend in a very different manner than what than what the previous generations could, and this has given a rise to a lot of digital and D2C brands to cater to their needs, because probably the mainstream brands were not catering to their needs as well. So we see the likes of Boat and Mama Earth and a bunch of other brands emerging in this space. Um I do think that the consumer is looking out for many more experiences today. So whether it's dining out or entertainment or going to movies, or whether it's the number of OTT platforms that are available, today's customers also spoiled for choice. So the way you need to target them and the way you need to reach them today, has to be just that much more individualistic. Even the modes of communication with the customer has changed, right? We strongly believe, and one of the theses that we are operating on when we build brands is consumers are moving away from, the print medium or the TV medium to many more individual mediums. I think the rise of the smartphone is probably one of the biggest disruptors in today's day and age. I mean, everything for you is available at the drop of a fingertip. So I think that, as we start emerging and as brands and as companies start building for the new consumer today, I think you'll have to do it in a very different manner, and the rules of the game are going to change.
All right, Avni, thank you.
I'm sorry, I believe my video has frozen, but it's raining
I
really
think
heavily in Delhi, and we just had a power cut. So we live in the digital age, but we just had a power cut. So I'm
no
going to
worries.
try and yeah.
We can hear you fine, so don't worry about the video. Okay, Avni, I
Okay.
want to come back to the next question with you as well, which is how can entrepreneurs contribute more to the economic growth of a developing nation like India? Did you get that, Avni?
Hi, can you hear me now? I'm sorry, I think the video froze again.
Fine. You're fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the question was, how can entrepreneurs contribute more to the economic growth of a developing country like India?
Sanaya, sorry, can you repeat your question again? You got cut off.
Sure. How can entrepreneurs contribute more to the economic growth of a country like India?
Um, so I fundamentally operate from a place where I believe entrepreneurship is one of the reasons India is such an exciting place to be. I personally feel that in most of us, that there exists that ability to hustle and that ability to do jugaad and to really build a business out of nothing. And I think entrepreneur's place in society is in many ways sacrosanct. Whether you look at job creation or you look at value addition, I think all of this only comes in from entrepreneurs and from the kind of audacious thinking that entrepreneurs really bring in to society. So in that sense, I wish I just wish that we can be a nation of many more entrepreneurs, and we can be a nation of entrepreneurs who come together to build many more jobs for the country, to build much more value creation, to build more categories, to build more events for consumption, because eventually everyone benefits from these exercises and the economy grows.
Absolutely. Thank you, Avni. Kadambari, I want to
Yeah.
ask you on your take, like if should entrepreneurs collaborate with other entrepreneurs and take whatever they're taking forward or backwards in different directions, or should it just be sticking to your lane? What's your opinion on this?
I think, honestly, I mean, I've always seen that sum of the parts is greater than the whole. And wherever there is collaboration possible, especially in industries where there are common issues, where everybody benefits from a solution, it's very important to have a conversation flow going. Some industries are sort of more structured, and there are forums for that, and it happens naturally. But I think in the startup world or in smaller niche industries, that's not as easy to sort of find a structure like that. So you have to make that extra effort to collaborate, to network, and it's always a good idea to be able to do that at whatever stage of business one's at whatever stage of entrepreneurship one's at. There's a lot to learn, and there's a lot to learn from. And sticking to the lane only kind of like makes sense when when there is conflict of some kind, which is obvious. But usually, there's nothing that a cup of tea or a glass of wine will not resolve, or at least make better. So I definitely feel that entrepreneurs should be talking to each other and collaborating in especially in problem areas, and everyone knows what the problem areas are for their specific industries. It's a matter of reaching out and making that first effort.
Absolutely.
So, Sanaya, can I just add something here?
Yes, please.
At Think Nine, we started something called the Ninth at Think Nine, where we invite fellow entrepreneurs from, relevant fields, or from some of our partner companies, etc., to just come and talk to us. And we've interacted with a bunch of founders, and a lot of people from the startup community. And what really struck me was the openness and the eagerness with which entrepreneurs today share. I think everybody has a story to tell, and there's so much to learn from each other. And everyone is so happy and willing to share it with you. Just last Friday, I met a very interesting entrepreneur, and I ended up asking him that, do you feel threatened when you collaborate with somebody in your space, or, in a very similar field to yours, or, running a very similar brand to you? And he said that, when I look at the opportunity of India, and when I look at how big the industry can be, or how much disruption one can create, I just feel like if we can benefit from each other and shorten somebody's learning curve, why won't we do that? So I think, yeah, I definitely think that in today's day and age, entrepreneurs are more than happy to help each other out. And while there may not be structured forums, one would be surprised as how many entrepreneurs are actually connecting and helping each other behind the scenes. And it's really heartening to see that, because entrepreneurship can be such a lonely journey.
Yeah.
And if entrepreneurs come together to support each other, it just makes the journey just so much more fun, and much more like easy, because you also end up feeling good sometimes, that it's not a you problem, it's an industry problem, or it's a we problem.
Which is why I love EO, because it's full of entrepreneurs, and then you have this fantastic network of people who are doing, also running businesses, and you
Yeah.
have this shared support system, which I really think is amazing. Okay,
It
so I have,
definitely. Sorry.
sorry,
I was just going to add in another experience there, but you can, if you want to go ahead, you can.
go ahead.
No, I was just saying that also it definitely, I've noticed that, when I started out, there weren't as many forums, especially in the liquor sector. And last 4 5 years there have been some effort to make forums, some that are even women centric. So there's one called Wow, which is Women of Wine, where they award like sort of the Women of Wine title to the top 10 women of wine in India. And thanks to this forum, we get to meet each other physically in a way that we would not have. And every year, that panel sort of changes. And I recently met with someone who was actually stuck with a very real issue in terms of and their product is they make wine out of fruit products instead of grapes, so they use other fruits to make wine. And they wanted to enter the market, and there is no website to tell you how to access how to register yourself with the state government in X market or Y market. But just because we'd had that conversation, we'd had that interaction, like over a WhatsApp message, we were able to resolve that, and I was able to help her do that. And that's the kind of sharing that's required today, that that one can just not feel threatened about that, or not feel like, oh, I need to stick to this, and not help the other person in that. I think it's great, and it comes back to you. What you give, you get back in unexpected ways.
Awesome, thank you. Okay, so now I'm going to ask you all a TV question. Do you think Startup India or Shark Tank has had an influence, on the way that entrepreneurs think, behave? Or do you think we have more entrepreneurs, or do we have less entrepreneurs after watching these shows? Like, what's your take on this? If you have any at all.
Uh, I definitely do think it's played a very interesting role in just kickstarting the conversation, whether it comes to fundraising or how to sell yourself or how to tell your story. Because at the end of the day, I feel like being an entrepreneur is also about telling a story.
Absolutely. Oops, I think place got cut off. Kate, do you want to jump in here?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think it makes it definitely more exciting and more glamorous. And I've actually met people who have participated in these shows, special Shark Tank especially. But I also think that it's a result of what's happening in India. It is not that what's happening in India is because we have these shows. These shows
Have they
are
influenced have they influenced the way that we function now? Do you think that they've influenced us in any way? The way that Avni was talking about presentation and how you market yourself. Do you think that's changed?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely made it like it's something that helps you hone your skills. Whether it's and I'm sure there's a lot of support system there as well. That when you go into a show like that, there is that you are sort of handheld along the way in terms of the expectations, in terms of how to present yourself, how to pitch, for sure. But and more of that is only going to make it more vibrant. But yeah, but I also think that that's sort of the need of the day based on everything else that's already happening in the economy. And it's not the other way around, that because we have the shows we have startups, we have startups therefore we have the shows.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Okay. So Kate,
Sorry,
Avni's back.
I'm
So please,
sorry, I'm back.
no,
Apologies. Hoping we do not have any more power cuts.
all right.
Um,
Please
So
come.
Avni, I'm going to jump into the next question while I have you here. I hope you're here.
yes, I'm very much here.
Okay. Okay. Tell me, do you think it's better to start early on your entrepreneurial journey? And when did you start? And how do you think initiatives like GSEA can be beneficial for entrepreneurs starting off right from college or university?
So, Sanaya, I personally think that it's a very personal experience. I started out really young, and I definitely belong to I have seen how it benefited me, but I don't know if it's a one size fits all approach. I think places like GSCA can play a very important role in you know giving a platform to budding entrepreneurs, because there's so much sharing, and there's so much of inputs, and the whole ecosystem allows you to think about a business or think about doing something on your own in a very structured manner, which I think is very helpful. Also, sometimes just being around other entrepreneurs and fellow entrepreneurs, you just pick up so much by association. So I think in that sense, platforms like GSE are great. But then again, I don't know if there's an age to be an entrepreneur. You don't have to be an entrepreneur at the age of 18, or you don't have to, you can also be an entrepreneur at the age of 50. I mean, look at Falguni Nair. I think today there's been a lot of chatter about her and how she's, become the richest woman in India. And she started her entrepreneurial journey in the 50s. So I don't know if there's a one size fits all approach. But yeah, I mean, as long as you're in the company of, great minds, and as long as you meet people who intellectually stimulate you and who you get to learn from, I think there is no right time to be an entrepreneur.
Thank you. Okay, what's your take on this?
I completely agree with Avni. I don't think that there is the perfect age. I mean, there's no wrong time to be an entrepreneur. You could be like 8-year old and sell lemonade, or you could be 50 and start KFC. But I think what's important is that you feel passionate about what your purpose is, or what is the change you want to bring about, or how you want to add value in whatever way that is. And as long as you find that passion, as long as you find that connection, it doesn't matter whether it's whether you start early or whether you start young. Of course, there's benefits, there's pros and cons to everything. Like there's wisdom that you accrue over the years simply by having had that many more experiences. So maybe you are a little more seasoned than you would have been, like if you had started 15 years ago. But that being said, I think what's more important is just to have the conviction and self belief about what it is that you're trying to do. And that can happen at any point in your entrepreneur journey. It could be your first or your 15th business idea, or it could be your only ever business idea. So I don't think age is that important. What's important is to follow your heart, and to know what it is that you want to bring to the world, that what is the change or the disruption that you see yourself making.
Thank you. Okay, now I have a question for you both because you all both mentioned that the consumer has changed. So, can you both tell me the top three ways, specific ways in which the consumer has changed for you guys? Avni, you go first.
Okay, I think today's consumer is definitely, increasingly becoming more digital. We personally believe that the consumer can still choose to buy a product anywhere, but probably the first place that they will maybe discover your brand, or it will probably be online or through a referral or through a friend or something. So even the way you today discover brands is changing, and the number of options that is available to a customer is changing. So for the same wallet share, you need to just work that much harder. Secondly, I also do think that today's consumer wants to be wooed and spoken to in a very different manner. One size does not fit all anymore. Gone are the days of mass advertising, or like just putting out a print ad and expecting people to, like expecting your sales to go up. I think gone are the days where that alone can build a business. So there are many things that today you need to do, and you need to think about a brand from a 360-degree perspective to really, you know, um, really build, really think about how will you reach your consumer, how will you consistently engage with your customer, and how will you think of the lifetime value of your customer. So I think in that sense, the consumer has changed,
Thank
and the
you.
consumer is also hungry for much more, right? They want, they are seeking newness, they're seeking experiences, they're
Yeah.
seeking they're seeking brands that tell a story that they can resonate with and they can relate to. So they also need something, they also need your, if you're a customer that believes in sustainability, or that believes in buying organic, or that believes in only buying things that are good for the environment, then probably the brands that you choose are going to be very different from somebody else who has a very different set of beliefs. So I think you need to also today sharpen your brand in a much more nuanced manner so that you can speak to that relevant customer.
Great. Okay. Kadambari, do you want to add on to that list?
Yeah, I think a lot of the things Avni touched on already, but I think in terms of like what I do specifically, one big change is that the since the last few years or the last 10 years, that a lot of the taboo that was there in alcohol or in indulging in alcohol, that seems to have changed a lot in India, in our country. We see that a more and more, larger and larger percentages of women are becoming our consumers, versus earlier it was very male dominated. The decision making about what alcohol to buy for the house used to be predominantly a male decision maker, and that perspective, that psyche has changed. There's a lot of women deciding what to drink, whether it's wine or whether it's any other alcohol, which is very interesting. I mean, a decade ago, it would have been unthinkable that one of the largest liquor companies in the country, Diageo, is a female led company. That just speaks to the point that I'm making, that more and more women have become important as a consumer in the industry. And the other thing is there's a lot more experimentation that the consumer is doing now than they've ever done before, which is what is sort of, it's kind of chicken and egg. It's because they want experimentation, they want options, they want choices. There are more choices, and therefore what that leads to is this thirst for information and knowledge and experiences, not just empty experiences, but experiences where they actually feel like that they are getting intellectually stimulated, which is something that was harder to that's something that I'm seeing that's different from before. Earlier it was much more about just a price point, like a price value combination that you delivered. You put it on the shelf or you put it on a restaurant, and it would sort of move based on that. But now there's much more, like there's a lot of storytelling, there's a lot of experiences that they expect, but also there's stimulation that the consumer wants. And that's a huge change that we've noticed in the category.
Avni? What is the one key message you want to give new entrepreneurs who've already started a business or are planning to start one? Just the one tip, the best tip.
I think it would be don't be afraid to fail.
Yeah.
Okay. Kadambari?
I think
Oh,
I
sorry.
think failure is a part of being an entrepreneur, and there's just so much learning that comes out of it that you probably learn more from your failures than you do from your successes. I can speak from experience, maybe. So, definitely, yeah, don't be afraid to fail. I mean, if you fail, it's okay. You can, start up and do something else. So, definitely, that would be my main message.
Kadambari?
Yeah, definitely that. I mean, a lot of self-belief, but also like I feel like one of the things I've learned is that trust your gut, trust your instinct, like be really true to your core self, your value system, because the entrepreneurial journey is so erratic. There's so many ups and downs. There's so many opportunities where one has so much to learn from, where you might think you're failing, where you need to pivot, and there's a lot of dark days where like that self belief is very very important to just make sure that you don't lose yourself, and that you believe in whatever it is that you're doing, even if that means that needs to come back in a different iteration. So in short, I would just say, like, just stay true to yourself, follow your path, stick to what it is that you sought out to do. Be open to changes, but don't lose that self belief.
Okay. And it brings me to my last question to both of you again. So, should you trust your gut? Do you trust your brain? Or do you trust your heart? Or is it all that you balance it out? So, what do you guys recommend? What should you do when you come to a catch-20 situation and you can't decide what to do? Trust your brain or trust your heart or trust your gut? What do you trust?
I mean, for me, it's really about the situation I'm in. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it depends on, like, what hat I'm wearing. So like generally with anything to do with people, I always follow my heart. And I obviously am like aware of all the cognitive issues involved, but like when it comes to my people, when it comes to other people, in general, like the heart and gut combination is stronger. And when it comes to pure numerical issues, or just things that are very black and white or legalese in nature, then of course, like, no matter what your gut is telling you to do, you have to understand what the law is, or you have to understand what the technicalities are, even if it means that's against your grain and not what you're naturally comfortable with. You kind of have to make sure that you understand that side as well.
Abni, what do you think on this?
No, I agree with what Kadambari said. I think in business, like when it comes to like making like very business decisions, we always say that there's an art of doing the business and there's a science of doing the business. So I think in every business decision that you take, probably the art and science has to merge. So it needs to be a healthy combination of data as well as gut, and figuring out at what point what should be more indexed. And also when it comes to like personal decision making or decision about people, the one thing we've learned is your heart and mind should always converge, and you should feel good about making that decision. So I think that's one of the principles we stick by whenever I have to make a decision at least. So yeah.
Thank you. Thank you both. You all have been absolutely amazing. And some of the insights have been really, really helpful to me, especially. So, with that, I'm going to bring the section to a close. Um, I want to remind all our viewers that the Global Student Entrepreneurship Award is a premier global competition for students who own and operate a business while studying in college or in university. GSEA supports student entrepreneurs with mentorship, recognition, and connections to take their business to the next level of success. At the global finals, students compete for a total prize package of 50,000 US dollars in cash, with the first place receiving $25,000. All travel and lodging expenses are covered. Second place receives US dollar, 10,000 US dollars, and the third place receives 5,000 US dollars. Further, EO Kolkata is also offering a cash prize of rupees 1 lakh to the winners. So, no waiting, start applying. The link is in the chat. And with these final words, this live session comes to a close. Thank you for watching.